Beings, to a large extent, are the most creative agents when it comes to pattern creation in the world. The patterns that characterize our lives, for people who don't understand how these patterns come into being and how they form our life, they leave themselves up to what is called destiny. And in that sense, we view destiny from the perspective of determinism. Hi. Thank you so much for joining me in this edition of Clear Thinking Digest. So I'd like to explore the concepts of choice and human free will as it really affects our activities in the world. You see, reality is really characterized by a cascade of patterns. You wake up in the morning, you walk out on the streets, there are a lot of activities happening, but the events and the actions that set forth those activities, most of them are unknown to you. You see that there is an activity happening in your area, new buildings coming up, new people coming into the city, some of them leaving the city. There's a lot of activities that characterize our world. And you as an agent, and you as a creative agent in the world, to a large extent, you don't know how these activities come into being and how they go out of being. But you find yourself swimming in these ocean of patterns that have been created by, some of them created by people you did not even know, people who have existed before you. And these patterns will continue on even after you are gone. But does this leave us helpless in this sea and ocean of patterns? It doesn't really leave us that way. Human beings, to a large extent, are the most creative agents when it comes to pattern creation in the world. The patterns that characterize our lives, for people who don't understand how these patterns come into being and how they form our life, they leave themselves up to what is called destiny. And in that sense, we view destiny from the perspective of determinism. So which means we are living ourselves onto fate. But for people who understand the crucial role that the human free will plays as manifested in choice, they understand that within the sea of these patterns that have been created by a host of factors, that you as an agent, and by agent I mean you as a creative force, can set off patterns and can end patterns. And by so doing, you can, to a large extent, renegotiate your destiny. And this is where the power of human mind comes in, because when we talk about the human free will or choice, we're here talking about your mind as a creative force. And how does your mind come into place? The capacity for human beings, the capacity of the human being to become a creative force in the ocean of patterns that characterize our world, came into being millions of years ago when our forefathers developed the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that allows you to make decisions. It is the executive part of the human mind. And from here comes your ability to choose whether or not to engage in a course of action. For other lower species, like lower sets of animals, the prefrontal cortex don't have enough neurons to generate consciousness. But the human brain, within the prefrontal cortex, we've got approximately about 16 billion neurons that allow for consciousness to generate thoughts. And with that thought, you can become a force that is creative enough to initiate meaningful patterns that can disrupt or create reality. So this is where your role as an agent in the world becomes very crucial. So when people talk about whether or not we have control over our destiny, this question, I think, is best answered when you understand the creative force that your mind as a human being brings to the world. That creative force comes with the power of your mind. But to what extent can you really characterize yourself as a creative force in the world? The extent to which you can characterize yourself as a creative force in the world comes with the quality of your thinking, with the quality of your mind. If the quality of your mind is high enough, the best way I interpret it is, if your intelligence is high enough, you can, to a large extent, become a creative force that is powerful enough to cause huge change, to create a cascade of patterns, to alter patterns, and to create patterns that can renegotiate your destiny, that can bring forth the things that you conceive in your mind. If the quality of your mind is not developed enough, is not high enough to bring forth these realities, you would find yourself always struggling with life. You will find yourself beholden to the fate of the patterns that have been created before you. You came into existence, and even while you are still in existence. So I think the question of human destiny and whether or not we are left to the events of the world or the patterns that have been created in our world rests solely on your appreciation of the miracle of the human mind, the miracle of human consciousness that creates free will, that creates choice. And you cannot really deploy this miracle of the human mind if the quality of your mind is not developed enough to leverage it. So this is why I talk about an exercise in clear thinking as the single most important thing when it comes to making decisions, because decisions is the critical factor that really brings to bear, that really brings this creative force of choice to material reality. It is at the point of decision making that we really manifest our ability, this creative force of our mind. So at the heart of decision making, it's your ability not to really think clearly. And this is what an exercise in clear thinking is really all about. It's about appreciating, really, the role the creative force of your mind has to play and leveraging that in a very creative way. An exercise in clear thinking allows you to properly interpret the word accurately, and to do it fast enough to ensure progress and growth. So really, what I advise you is to step back in your decision-making process, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in your business, in your work, irrespective of where you are deploying this creative force. Step back, appreciate first that your mind has a big role to play in the world, that every single decision that you make, from the breakfast you're gonna have this morning to the choice of a life partner, counts. That it can set off a cascade and a series of patterns that can end up in something that is unimaginable, something that you cannot fathom. So understand that every single decision that you make weighs equally at every scale. When you understand this, I assure you, the way you're going to go about living your life will drastically change, and the quality of your decision making will really improve. And by so doing, you will become a blessing to not only yourself, but for everyone around you. You, as a creative force, have the ability to change the world by the choice that you make day in, day out, every minute, every second. Thank you so much for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.